From its outward appearance, you wouldn't necessarily think that World of Warcraft is a scary game, but it does have a lot of really creepy stuff in it and a lot of really creepy locations. And so today, we're going to be counting down the top 10 scariest places in World of Warcraft, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. Number 10. Tirisfal Glades is already a pretty creepy place, but one of the creepiest things about it is the human test subjects that you can find in the Undercity. If you go to the lowest levels of the Apothecarium and you go into this little side room, what you're going to find is some humans and a dwarf caged up in cages who are apparently the test subjects for the Forsaken Alchemists. If you stick around, what you'll see is the apothecary actually performing tests on one of the subjects. He'll turn him into a rabbit, he'll turn him into a sheep. All the while, all the other test subjects are sitting there patiently, or the women are crying and begging to be released. It's kind of creepy considering the fact the guy they're doing the experiments on actually dies at the end. But then again, it is the Forsaken, so I guess it shouldn't be too much of a surprise. But it is worthy of putting on the list. Number 9. I remember the first time I walked behind Beggar's Haunt and I wandered up the path to find Knight's Hollow. Knight's Hollow is the location of the unmarked grave where occasionally a player can find the Unknown Soldier, which is a rare spawn that spawns there. I remember doing all the quests in Duskwood back in the day and not a single one took you to this area. It's just like this little corner of the forest with an unmarked tombstone and these two brooding statues standing over it. It's a pretty creepy spot, and the little waterfall and the pond next to it kind of makes it even cooler. Personally, I think this area is pretty cool, but it can be a little spooky the first time you find it. Number 8. Nestled in the hills of Nagrand is the Cannibal Troll Orphanage. Now, at first glance, this place might not look that bad, but when you take a closer look, some things appear to be off. The first thing that you'll notice is that there's explosives in the sandbox where the children play. Then you'll notice the torn babies swinging around on this awkward contraption. You'll then notice that the doghouse is populated by nothing but a dead, rotting body. And then you'll notice that there are cages behind the orphanage itself filled with bones of dead people. It kind of has led to the speculation that this troll woman is catching and killing and maybe even eating these children, considering the fact that she has a convenient little cauldron right next to her. I don't know. I guess it just goes to show that even a place like Nagrand can have its dark secrets. Number 7. Vashj'ir is already a pretty creepy zone for a lot of people, but the creepiest part of it is definitely the abyssal depths. Now you, for example, might not find anything creepy about these two areas, but for people with the fear of deep water, these areas can be very, very uncomfortable, and the abyssal depths, with its darkness and its little old god people swimming around at the bottom around that big ol' spooky vortex, it can be pretty uncomfortable to quest there, and it's definitely worth putting on the list. Some people might feel weird there, some people don't, but it's definitely worth mentioning. Number 6. The Agamand Mills family crypt might not seem all that intimidating today, but back in the day before the Cataclysm revamp, this spot was a nightmare to go and quest in. The quest that asked you to go here required that you kill Captain Dargul, who was a level 13 skeleton who guarded the very bottom of the crypt. Around him were tons and tons of rotting ancestors and wailing ghosts. Now, I'm not sitting here trying to imply that just because there was a lot of NPCs in the crypt, it was a super scary place. It was really the ambience and the lore of the area. The lore behind the Agamand Mills is actually pretty creepy, and it's filled with betrayal and people making their last stand against the Scourge, and even as a new WoW leveler that knew nothing about the WoW lore, I found it to be really interesting. So many adventurers walked into that crypt expecting to get their Darkwood staff, and so many returned to Brill empty-handed. Number 5. Hidden beneath Raven Hill Cemetery is probably one of the biggest surprises a Warcraft player can find. If you go into the catacombs on the eastern side and you make your way to this back corner of the room, you'll be shocked to find this little muddy passageway that leads to this secret laboratory beneath Raven Hill. The laboratory is run by a necromancer named Morbent Fell, who in Cataclysm becomes a lich. He's a pretty interesting NPC because despite all the spooky undead all around him, he lives in a pretty homely house up on a hill, and he had a pretty awesome quest chain that eventually led up to his death. Either way, finding this laboratory beneath the cemetery was awesome back in the day, and to this day, even now, it remains one of my favorite locations in the entire game. Number 4. One of my favorite quest lines in all of World of Warcraft is the Legend of Stalvin, which concludes at Manor Mistmantle. The story of Stalvin is a pretty tragic one, and to sum it up, it's about a teacher who falls in love with one of his young students. He eventually finds out that she's promised to another man, and in a great rage he kills her groom-to-be, and kills both of their families. Stalvin becomes a mass murderer, and you engage in a huge quest chain where you're kind of figuring out what happened to him, which ultimately leads to you killing him at Manor Mistmantle. For this reason, it's a pretty creepy little spot in Duskwood just because of the fact that it has such a great little story behind it. For me, Manor Mistmantle stands out because even though Blizzard is working within a rated T for teen game, they do have a little bit of liberty to imply and talk about some of the more darker elements of the Warcraft universe, and this creepy house in the woods stands for that perfectly. Number 3. A lot of people consider the Karazhan Crypts to be the scariest place in WoW, but honestly, I almost didn't put it on the list. The only reason why I did is because so many people would comment about why I didn't. The thing about the Karazhan Crypts is they're pretty much an unused area in WoW beneath the Tower of Karazhan. In the Karazhan Crypts, you're going to find a lot of really crazy stuff, like a bunch of bodies floating underwater by chains, piles of skulls, and a huge amount of tunnels that are just empty, filled with skeletons and whatnot. It's a pretty creepy place, I have to admit, but there's really no lore behind it, and it's just kind of an unused scary spot in WoW that players can't even get to unless they exploit a bug. Frankly, I didn't want to put it as number 1 for those reasons, and because, in my opinion, there are other places in WoW that are a lot more scary. Number 2. Purgation Island is an island off the southern coast of Hillsbrad Foothills, and if you went there prior to Cataclysm's release, you probably were in for a very nice surprise. You might have saw the island in the distance and wondered just like me, hey, what's over there? And you swam on over and you were greeted by a bunch of elite level 60 paladins and monks and acolytes and clerics. It was wonderful. The thing about the island, though, is that it's so creepy because as soon as you swim up to it, the skybox changes and it turns into this Duskwood / Tirisfal Glades evil-looking place. Apparently all the spirits that used to roam the island were put there by the boss Cormac, who used to reside in Scholomance. However, nowadays the island is filled with nothing but Wildhammer dwarves and Worgen. However, for those of us that remember, this place used to be pretty intimidating, and it was a place you did not go to unless you had a good group watching your back. Number 1. We've gone over a lot of creepy stuff so far, but there's one place in particular that stands out as the most scary place in all of World of Warcraft, and that is, without a doubt, Scholomance. Now you might ask yourself, why Scholomance? It's just an instance. Well, there's a lot of lore behind Scholomance other than the fact it's just a training place for the Cult of the Damned. You learn a lot about it through the quest chains of getting the key to get into Scholomance, as well as hearing the story of Eva Sarkov. The stories are filled with butchery and necromancy and just pure cruelty. People being killed and then being brought back to life only to be tortured and killed again, then to be brought back to life and tortured and killed again, just over and over and over. It's a pretty disgusting place. Let's put it this way. If Manor Mistmantle is a creepy spot simply because of the fact it's inhabited by a mass murderer, this dungeon, this island, takes it 100 steps further. Instead of just one crazy guy, you're talking about an entire school dedicated to creating generations of lunatics that are just meant to spread the curse of undeath and torturing and killing anybody who gets in the way. I think it's awesome. I hope I was able to show you some places or maybe introduce you to just a little bit of lore that maybe you weren't aware of. It's a lot of fun to make lists like this, so if you liked the video, by all means leave a comment. And if you didn't like the video, leave an even angrier comment in all caps. I will read it, don't worry. I also do machinima, which you can click here if you want to check those out. But either way guys, thanks for watching and I will talk to you next time. Stay spooky.